Okay. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but how well or how much of a transformation has Mason Young's really made in his game this year?
Yeah, I think with Mason, I think it's showing the rest of the American Hockey League what he's always believed that is inside of him, and what I've believed what's inside of him. He's had more opportunity this year, and opportunity is important in the American League. And sometimes it's hard, and sometimes in the American League, it's not just about how good you're playing because of prospects and contracts, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into those things. And I think that for whatever reason, he didn't get or earn a huge opportunity off his entry level deal in New York. Came here last year, was playing pretty well, and then got hurt and missed most of the rest of the year before the trade deadline. And then this year, I think he's showing the player he is. There was nothing about watching him play in junior hockey or at Ohio State that didn't say this is going to be a really good American Hockey League player. Like Hobie Baker finalist, drove their team to championships in a really tough conference. So I don't know if his game is transforming as much as he's showing, I think, how good he is and what he's always believed.
Trade shaking things up down here a little bit in Rochester. Carson and Austin, what do they add?
Well, they had size and some physicality for sure. This is a hard division. The North Division's heavy, it's physical, and we felt we needed to get a little bigger, a little heavier, a little more competitive in some of those areas. Certainly on our D-core, we've got a ton of skill on our D-core. So to add another big body, we added Barkowski in, we've added Ciccone in, and now Strand. We've added a lot of size and physicality and competitiveness to the blue line, which is going to be helpful down the stretch and obviously, hopefully, in the playoffs. So those are the biggest things that they add. Also, high character, like all the homework we did, our scouts, our management team, people that know both guys just rave about the kind of teammates they are, the energy and the attitude they bring to the rink every day, and you can already see that in both of them.
This weekend it starts with Hartford. What do you remember about the 4-1 loss back in January?
Hartford, that was on the back end of a hard trip where we played at home, had to bus out to Bridgeport, played at Bridgeport, and then had to go there. But they're playing really good right now. Their goals for recently has been high. Their goals against, their team defense all year has been very good. They have strong goaltending, one veteran, one prospect, but real strong goaltending. Their D-core's pretty high end for the American League. I mean, it's a good mix of having some older defensemen mixed in with some really, really talented prospects. So where they sit right now, I don't think is where they're going to finish. I think they're a team that's trending upwards and going to be a real hard team to beat down the stretch of the season.
How do you navigate that?
You're going to have to make them. You're going to have to play behind them because they gap very good. They have a really mobile D-core, and their gaps are strong. And that's just, if teams are doing those things to you, you have to be willing to play behind them and forecheck and make the game difficult on them in that manner.
3 against Toronto. So how do you conserve energy to take on the Marks?
You don't conserve. This isn't a time of year you can't conserve. We don't have as much depth right now on our roster either, with a few injuries. So you have to manage at that point. So we're not, the standings are so tight. You can't worry about Sunday on Friday. So you play the game in front of you. You're going to have to sell out to try to beat a really good team in Hartford. We're going to have to sell out to try to beat a really good team in Syracuse, and then we'll see what we have in us on Sunday, and then go out there and try to beat a really good team in Toronto. So it's going to be a challenging weekend, but they're fun challenges because it's an important time of year. We've earned the right to be in this position, and now you want to enjoy it and take advantage of it.
I think we talked like a week or whatever, here 2 weeks ago, that like scoring is tough this time of the year. And I think after we had that conversation, you guys went absolutely nuts scoring. Is that just kind of, whether it's puck luck or is that just scoring and confidence kind of can get rolling? Because it kind of seems like it's been like this a little bit recently.
Yeah, it has been a little up and down recently. I think we saw trends in our game, individually and collectively, that were leading towards that outcome. But then it comes, and I do think confidence plays a part of that, especially, 7, 8, 9, depending on the night, of our forwards are young, right? They're rookies or first time kind of go-to guys in this league. So there is, and I think all offensive players, most offensive players, I should say, are streaky, right? It's very few are McDavid that seem to do it almost every single night. You go on a 6-game run where you get 10, 11, 12 points, and then you might be quiet for a few games. And I think the important thing is, when you're quiet, what are the other things you're doing to help the team win? And that's where Brandon Byro is such an elite player. Whether he scores, he's our leading scorer, but whether he scores or not, he's helping us win hockey games. And I think that's the goal, to try to get all the players, the young prospects, to do those things, and they've done such a good job of getting better in those areas.
I know you've been asked about him, but what surprises you the most about Kulik being so young and doing the things that he's doing? Kevin Adams said, he was a non-starter at the trade deadline, all these things, and said what he's doing at 18 years old in the American Hockey League is rare.
Yeah, it's extremely rare. What Rosian's doing at 19 is rare. It's so for Kulik, there's very few 18-year-olds that are physically capable of even playing in the league. He is. And then there's very few 18-year-olds that have the emotional maturity to also be away from home, live on your own in a new country, all those things. And that's probably the thing that's impressed me the most. Seeing him at the under-18s last year, watching that tournament, and I love that tournament. Obviously, I've coached in that tournament a lot, so even though I'm not a scout, I watched that tournament still, and I was incredibly impressed. Then we drafted him. I was excited about that. Then you see him at development camp and rookie camp, and you get excited about that. So the things he's doing offensively and athletically on the ice, I don't want to say are that surprising to me. I think it's more how he's handled everything at 18 years old. He's early to the rink. You're worried about 18-year-olds. Are they going to show up on time? Are they, they're going to stagger in every morning and look like they just rolled out of bed 5 minutes ago? Like he and Rosie are in that shooting room together. A lot of our guys are, but we're talking about those guys specifically. They're in that shooting room together at the same time every day. Just like Jack and JJ were a lot last year, right? And he comes to the rink and he practices with purpose, and he does extra workouts. And Craven is our strength coach. Nick Craven is asked those young guys to report down to him more than the team does, because we need to build strength in those guys. And he doesn't just scoot out of here. He's down in the weight room. It's just all of those things, paying rent, be able to take care of yourself for food, all that stuff. If all of those things aren't in order, your game on the ice is less, because your life's out of order. So I think that's the most surprising thing and the most impressive thing.
I can't imagine the language barrier, the different country, because that we always talk about off the ice things affecting your on the ice. Is that kind of hand in hand? You're kind of talking about with him at 18 years old.
That was my biggest worry. Can life be in order so he can be in order here and then get better? If you're not sleeping properly, if you're up late at night playing video games or FaceTiming back home, or whatever those things are, all of those things impact you. And when I was at USA, those kids had to get up at 6:30 and go to school. And then they'd be at the rink for like 5 hours. And you could see the players that got 9 hours of sleep versus the guys that were up playing video games. And the guys that got 9 hours of sleep would just start going like this. And the guys that their life wasn't maybe as in order off the ice would get left behind, because they just can't keep up with the volume of training. And that's here. That's the American League. We're putting those kids through a lot. Playing in this league at the age the four of them are, extra workouts, because they have to get stronger. You can put muscle on in the season, but you have to put a lot of extra work in to do it, right? So none of those things would be able to be done if he wasn't living a good life away from the rink.
HLA. obviously they changed the rules so that 18-year-olds could be in it, right? Before they were.
No, you could be. The difference is, if you're drafted out of the Canadian Hockey League, you cannot play in the American League at 18 and 19. You have to, if you don't make the NHL, you have to go back to junior hockey, like the Shane Wright situation.
Gotcha.
An American can, but most Americans go to college, right? So usually then the only 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds you see in the American League are usually Europeans, if they're ready.
Speaking off that, we were talking about adding muscle, being stronger. It seems like the American Hockey League, we've always said, is kind of more physical, kind of grittier style of play. Are you surprised at the way that he's been able to fit into that from a more finesse style of play, though, you know, in Europe to now this, where it's kind of a grind every single night?
Yeah, I'm impressed at how he's handled the physicality. Him and Rosien both coming from Europe, coming from Olympic-sized ice sheets, where there's less physicality, there's less contact, there's more room, there's more space, all those things. It's slower, it's a little more soccer-like, there's more regrouping and coming back underneath and things of that nature. You know, there's been times that they get frustrated, but those times they've been few. And the thing that you get impressed with a kid like Yuri is his ability for us to show things on video to him, and then for him to be able to go apply it in games at 18 against men. That's hard to do. And there's been a few times, now the language is getting better and better. There's a few times earlier in the year where I was being very demanding of him and in practice about his habits. And those were times that I would bring him in the next day and have Google Translate and write out a message to him and show it to him in Czech. Because I just thought it was really important for him to understand in his home language what I was doing and why I was being so hard on him and why I was making him do drills again. And I wasn't doing it to embarrass him. I was doing it for him to learn how to have good habits in practice. And those are always hard conversations when you're being hard on a young prospect. And they're really hard when the language barrier exists. And so I think that those were important things early, because I think there was a time he was like looking at me sideways, like, why is this guy yelling at me? And I thought it was really important in his own language for him to understand what we were trying to accomplish and what we were doing for him.
You have Google Translate in players in your career?
Kisakov at the draft was the first time. There's probably other times I should have, even though they're American, but Kisakov was the first time at the draft, and then Kisakov and Kulik, I've used it multiple times this year, especially early. Now you don't have to, but you definitely have to ask them sometimes, do you understand? You know, because what a teacher, a parent, or a coach says and what young people hear aren't always the same things, especially when the language comes in. So you want to make sure that they're understanding the message.
I heard Rosie's his translator.
Rosie?
That's what Barkowski was saying.
Rosie and him are pretty close, which is really neat to see. Like
19-year-old translator.
The 19-year-old non-American translator. But Rosie's English is very good. So the Swedes and the Finns usually come over with a pretty good grasp of the language. Yeah.
So back to the strength and size and that, Gashevsky, is he in that category also? You want more size and strength up front?
Well, yeah. So when part of, we dealt Bjork, and that's this move that doesn't, isn't necessarily to help us. That's for his career. That was a great opportunity for Anders to get back to the National League and show what he is about. And obviously had 3 assists the other night. He and I were texting after that game, which was pretty neat and really special moment for him to get back and play that well. So then you're short a forward, and then, you're not going to replace a player of Bjork's talent. So you want other things. And Gasevich he's 6'3", 215, 220 pounds. He plays hard. He can play center, he can play wing, and he can penalty kill. So when you combine his size and his physicality with his character, and then that versatility of center, wing, and penalty kill, made him an attractive piece for us to acquire.
I said the name wrong, Gasevich. So did he do in the first couple of games what you wanted him to do?
Yes. Yep. I thought that he and Brendan Warren are hard to play against individually, and they're very hard to play against collectively. I thought they did a lot of good things and made the game difficult on their opponent.
In the locker room, do you think?
Kasevich and Strand have fit very well into the locker room, and that's a real credit. Jason and Kevin really value, and Kevin's spoken about this openly. Want guys that want to be here in Western New York and Rochester and Buffalo. Want guys that are proud to be in the Sabres organization, the Amherst organization, and want good humans that want to play for each other. And those guys, that was the reports from everybody we talked to, management, scouts, and myself. But that's also what you see. High character, good energy. Like, you like guys that are energy givers, not energy takers, that bring life to the locker room, that bring life to practice, that help drag guys into the fight with them because of that. And both those guys seem to have that in spades.